I use this pendant in one of my recent YouTube videos, and in this video, I used it to kind of speak about how I view spirituality. So today, I want to use this again to show you why I say in a lot of my videos that you shouldn't believe me. In truth, I see spirituality as something that you shouldn't believe in. It's kind of disingenuous to have spiritual beliefs because spirituality in its essence is to cut to the heart of who you are, to the heart of life, of truth, of reality, to have deeper, if not complete, understanding of what life is. So the moment that you start to have beliefs, it's like kind of moving away from what is fundamentally true in favor of what you want to be true, in favor of your own personal preference. So generally, when in general speaking, we only believe what we're told. Okay, it's like you don't wake up in the morning and believe that it's daylight because you can see that it's daylight. Now, anybody could argue with you about that and tell you that it's not daylight, but if you can see that it is for yourself, then there's no point in arguing. This is just a foolish kind of argument that you'd be entering into. So when it comes to belief and when we're speaking about spiritual matters, we're obviously speaking about something that is not plain to see, but that doesn't mean that it's something that cannot be observed. So this is why I use the pendant to speak about it. And the whole idea of the lollipop principle, which is this concept that I came up with, or rather, what I'd rather say is that came to me, is, the lollipop principle is this symbol up in the corner, for those of you that don't know. And I'll speak about that in further videos. But the whole purpose of the lollipop principle and why I use this is because we are fundamentally, we learn through observation. And observation isn't just through the eyes, it's we learn through our whole senses. We observe through all of our senses. Our senses provide feedback to our brains or our minds. Our minds record this so that it's available to us as and when it's required. So you might say that this is what we utilize for our survival. But then there is a deeper aspect of observation which isn't related to the mind. So it comes from deeper than the mind. And this is, I'm explaining it as I see it. Okay. So this is why I say you shouldn't believe me, because this is how I see it. And the importance is that you see it for yourself. So when I say I'm speaking about the spiritual mind, basically what I'm speaking about is a mind that has kind of fallen back into, it's almost like it's fallen back into itself. Okay. So, for example, when we're educated and we go through the education system, and everything that we learn basically fills our minds. So then we look at reality through this filter of what we refer to as our knowledge. But then, if we can arrive at this point of kind of questioning questioning what it is that we know, questioning our knowledge and our beliefs and all of these kind of things that ultimately make us who we are or who we think we are. If we can arrive at this point of questioning all of that, then, it's like at school, we learn to understand things by breaking them down, taking them to pieces, if you like. This is the nature of science and exploration and so on and so on. If we want to learn about things and have a kind of a different understanding about things, it doesn't matter whether it's history, whether it's religious or religion related, whether it's science, whatever it is, it's necessary to break it down into smaller pieces. And in this breakdown, we then form a picture about how all of this comes together to be what it is. So, in the same respect, if we can use that kind of same method to understand our intellect and our minds and everything that makes us who we are, then in a sense, it's like turning the mind and the intellect onto itself. And this is kind of like the power that we all have. We all have this kind of potential to be able to do this, to be able to understand ourselves and who we are at a deeper level by utilizing all of the things that we've been kind of given to understand the world, the rest of the world. So once we arrive at this point of breaking down everything that we regard ourselves as, then it's like arriving at this place where our in I might refer to this as the infant mind, but it's also the spiritual mind. The infant mind is the mind that doesn't have any knowledge, doesn't have any memories, doesn't have any knowledge. So it is as the infant is born into this world, then it starts to analyze. It starts to, well, not analyze as such, starts to observe, starts to absorb all these different information and data, starts to store it in its mind. So to break down the mind in this way, the intellect and all of this kind of stuff, the identity and so on, we arrive at the infant mind. And the difference between the infant mind and you arriving at that state of mind now is you are no longer within the infant stage of life. So you have a completely different kind of comprehension of reality than what you did as the infant. So this is why I refer to it as the spiritual mind, because now this is the mind that that is beyond memory. And referring to it as the mind that's beyond memory, it also kind of begs the question, can we still call it a mind? But that's for you to observe. Like I said, there's nothing here for you to believe. So when I speak about and I share videos and I say, don't believe me, there's no wisdom in believing anything that I'm saying. It's purely because of that, because I'm putting into words the words that are available to me to use right now. And if you are listening through your kind of filter, then the words that I'm using, you might sort of interpret to mean something else and so on, which is completely disingenuous. It's going in completely the opposite direction. But, using this pendant so I can show you what I mean when I say, or why I say you shouldn't believe me. So if you imagine now, this is the spiritual mind, or this is the infant mind. Let's start off with it being the infant mind. And being the infant mind, this this area, if you like, or the space that surrounds the infant mind, this is awareness. So the infant mind is ultimately pure awareness. It is, there's no identity, there's nothing that it's identified by or with. So this space and the infant mind ultimately are one. Okay. Now, the moment the infant mind begins to form beliefs and so on, this is where what the infant mind believes is over here somewhere, or it's over here somewhere. Okay. So then the infant mind believes it's this or whatever it's whatever this belief. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter what the belief's about, what it pertains to, or anything like that. But the moment that the infant mind believes something, this is where it kind of sees itself. So the belief is an identification, and this identification is here, or it's here, but it's not here. Now, this being the infant mind initially, it doesn't change. There's no change here. Nothing happens here. But this is an image, or this is an image. So the infant mind observing this image believes this image to be the truth, believes this image to be something to be identified by. And likewise, the opposite is something that it doesn't want to identify with. Okay, so it identifies with this, which means it kind of disidentifies with that. If disidentify is an actual word, but you know what I'm trying to say. Okay, so it identifies with this. So essentially, once the infant mind has taken on this identity, then it must build its kind of arsenal of identities, if you like, to, in a sense, give itself some depth. So you look at who we are right now. I've said in a previous video that if you, or rather, can you identify yourself without thinking about it? If you sort of disregard anything that you know, in your mind about who you are, how do you identify yourself without thinking about it? Okay. And the reason why I'm asking this is because ultimately our identity, or what we believe to be our identity, is purely thought. It's purely what we think. So once you remove all of these ideas and beliefs and thoughts from your mind, then you also remove your belief in your identity. But once you have this belief that who you are is this, then it kind of opens up, uh, let's say, a void that needs to be filled. Okay. So you can't just be this. You know, it's like if I identified with this, whatever it is, it could be race, color, culture, blah, 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 religion, my appearance, my height, whatever it is. If I identify with one thing, then it's like psychologically, there has to be more to me than just this. So I've got to identify with a whole host and a multitude of different things. It's like innumerable number of things. You couldn't begin to count how many things you're actually identified with. And in fairness, it's quite a frightening thought, but it's something that we never think about. So one identification, a single identification, opens up the door to innumerable identifications. We have to be identified with so many things to give who we believe we are some level of depth. This is why we say in so many things, and social media is a good place to see it. People want you to see them as being something greater than what they think of themselves. So they will define themselves as this, that, this, that, this, that, this, that, and the other thing, and blah, 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 and so many different things. because it kind of reinforces this identity that they are somebody of some kind of level of importance or whatever. And it's purely to satisfy their own illusion of who they are. But here, there's no identity, there's no identification, there's nothing to identify with. Okay? And this is the most bizarre thing about what we see as life. There's so many people, and you'll see this, you see it in spirituality. I've seen it a lot over the years, but you see it in life in general. People speaking about freedom and so on, and all these different ideas of what it means to be free. But all these different ideas of what it means to be free all require you to do something or to be something or to act in a certain way. When in reality, everything that you are trying to be, to do, or to act, it's like binding yourself to something. So if you're binding yourself to something, then you're obviously not free. This binding is like an enslavement in a sense. And what we are ultimately is bound to this idea of identity. Who we are initially at birth, because of how we're conditioned to see ourselves, this isn't enough. You're not enough as you are. You have to be something. You have to make something of yourself. So we spend our lives trying to reach different goals. You reach this goal, then you have to try to reach this goal. So you set your targets to get to this point. When you reach this point, you've got to set your targets to get somewhere else, because your life is seemingly unfulfilled if you are not focusing on reaching somewhere. But to be still, there is no value in this. And we don't see the value in this stillness. We don't see the freedom, the liberation in this stillness. We don't see it. And that's the key word. We don't see it. We only see in accordance with the filter in our minds. So to break down that filter, to see this filter for what it is to arrive at this point, which primarily would have been the infant mind, but now being the grown up, the adult, or whatever age you are, and having this realization to return to this point, this is now freeing yourself from the ego and its trappings and its desires, its whims, its wishes, its dreams, and all of this movement, and coming back to this point, which is your fundamental truth, this point from which all true observation arises. And it's all this observation that is ultimately capable, if you like, of observing this movement, this being the spiritual mind.